Hey, Wember World Entertainment, and episode 2 of season 4 of Strange New Worlds is here, and we're going to review it. This is the horror episode. Woo! And it's the most generic type of horror you've ever seen in your life. It's like you're doing the usual tropes, like the lights are on, they go out, they come on, ooh, there's a figure back there, they go out again, come back on, the figure's gone. It's that trope. It does get pretty gruesome for Star Trek by the end of the episode, which we will get to. So the episode is called the Griffin Incident. So it starts off with Kirk's log. He's saying something about they were at some world convention or something, and he was hoping to hitch a ride back with La'an and Spock. He's saying, like, his log says, I was hoping to hitch a ride back with these two. Yet you are hitching a ride back with these two, because you're in the shuttle. Here's one of the gruesome parts. He's in the shuttle with Spock and La'an. Okay. By the way, why they would be on a mission so far away from other ships and stuff in a shuttlecraft makes no sense. But they're coming through this what you can see back here, this asteroid field type thing, and they come across, there's a beacon, they can hear a beacon, and they find the USS Griffin, which is another Constitution class, and I can't remember how long ago they said it was lost, but there's rumors that it was like under attack from Klingons, or maybe it was this, or whatever. And there's no life signs on the ship, but they beam over onto ship. I think they beamed over. I'm pretty sure they beamed over and didn't put the shuttle on. All the shuttlecrafts from this ship are gone. All the lifeboats from this ship are gone. There's no signs of the crew whatsoever. Not whatsoever. No bodies. Nothing like that. And everything immediately starts going woo, and you, like, the first thing that happens is when La'an, Kirk, and Spock are walking down a corridor with searchlights, and you see a figure. And this is where I was a bit confused. La'an reacts to the figure and calls out, and they run after it, but all three of them actually see this person. They can see this person, they physically run after it, and yet La'an is the only one who reacted and called out to it and stuff, and it's like, why didn't the other two? And it was confusing, because it made me go like, wait a minute, like, was that person really there, or was it just in La'an's head? But then you quickly realize, well, the other two are actually reacting to her as well when this other person, the ghost thing, disappears. And I was like, okay. But the episode very much becomes... Do you remember the episode in TNG? Now, I can't remember what season it is, and I can't actually remember what the actual plot was, how it all came about. But I remember the Enterprise comes across a lost Federation ship, and they beam everybody back. And do you remember they find out that, like, weird things happen on board that ship? And then the Enterprise crew starts hallucinating stuff. I believe that's the episode where Picard comes across his mother in the corridor and stuff like that. But and they do the same in this episode. It's the episode where Beverly was in, it wasn't even the morgue, it was like just a cargo bay where they had all the bodies. And as she's doing her thing, she turns around and all the bodies are sitting up in the body bags and stuff. Remember that? Same kind of thing with this. It's that type of thing that goes on with this. Just that they lean a lot more into the creepy end of things. And for some reason they all split up and go. Like, Spock goes to the sickbay, La'an and Kirk go to the bridge, and then she goes to engineering. And it's like, with all this craziness that's starting to already happen and the things is starting to see and stuff, why would you split up? And Spock discovers, which is funny because he stays in sickbay to try and get the system up and running to find out what happened to the crew and stuff. And yet, all the information he gets in sickbay, La'an and Kirk have just got on the bridge as well. It's like, so why did you split? This is the very end of the episode, and I'll swing back to that when we get to it. So, there's also... They didn't seem to do what they did with Starfleet Academy, which was drop these little trailers. I did find one. I did put it in here so you can see what the episode was like, kind of in motion. I think it's in Spanish. I don't know. But all of this type of stuff is happening, and James Kirk keeps hearing his baby. Oh, by the way, he references and talks about David and Carol Marcus a lot in this episode, and how he apparently has a relationship with her and the son, which we know he didn't have a relationship with his son. He never met his son until Wrath of Khan. But this episode says to hell with that. So he keeps hearing a baby crying. And La'an, they've pushed more into her mental break for being Khan Noonien Singh's great-granddaughter. While Spock ends up stuck in sickbay, and he ends up seeing T'Ping, his wife, who's not his wife in this and stuff. That's who's here cutting his ear and all this stuff. Now, it does so many of the normal, usual dopey tropes. Oh, by the way, they do one thing and they absolutely screw this up. So T'Ping cuts his ears off, like the tips of the ears, and then says, oh, you know, your human part makes the best part of you, so all we have to do is cut your Vulcan part out, which is why she cuts the ears. And then says, and now your heart is in the wrong place, we'll fix that. She cuts his lower part of his shirt down by, like, just along his abdomen, close to his stomach and stuff, and that's where she's going to cut to get his heart. That's not where Vulcan's heart is. Number one, Vulcans have two hearts, but his heart is on his right side. It's not down in your stomach, it's on the right side. So they got that completely wrong. Now, while the madness is starting to happen and all this crap, all of a sudden, they did send a transmission out to the Enterprise. They don't know how long it'll take for the Enterprise to get it, but they send it out there. Spock, as I said, is trapped in sickbay, where he sees T'Ping and all this stuff. Kirk and La'an see their shuttlecraft destroyed outside the ship. They can't find any transporter readings or anything, so when they're seeing people, they're not sure what's going on. So the person they keep seeing was a crew member on board the Griffin called Harper, I think it was, Rose Harper, who apparently went mad. And by the logs, everybody died on board this ship and it gives you the numbers. I can't remember the number for strangulations was the first one. Then I think they said something like 16 stabbings. And then everybody else was still alive, was transported into open space. So that's the logs they get. And the ship, you never actually told exactly what is infecting the ship or what was causing these people to start hallucinating. Now, as we can see, Jim Kirk is with his brother Sam. Pike and all end up on this ship. Yeah, they're hallucinations. And you knew that immediately because they give away something straight away, which I copped the second the words came out of his mouth. I was like, they didn't say that. They beam on board the bridge where Kirk is. Now, Kirk is stuck on the bridge. He's trying to tear apart the communication section to try and rewire it to get more power and stuff. And by the way, they were only meant to have 20 minutes left of life support, I should say, on this ship. And yet they seem to have gone for another half hour on this ship. And the life support thing never came up again after they split up. It never comes up again. But La'an is down in engineering, and she sees this one Harper, and then gets surrounded by the whole crew, and they're like, welcome home, blah blah blah, be your true self. So they're pushing for the madness. As you can see, V's all burned on board. It's when they say to Kirk, what happened, what's going on, let's go and get the rest of the crew, and Pike says, and we better find this Harper. Or Hopper, whatever the hell, I think it's Harper. As soon as he said that, I was like, so they're not really here because nobody mentioned this crew member to them. So how did Pike know Harper? And then of course you find out that they are all imaginary. So Kirk stays on the bridge with Sam, Pike and number one go and find Spock, while Uhura and Ortiz. Now he said Ortiz this week. I'm pretty sure it's Ortega, but her name seems to change. I don't know. The helms person, or as they like to keep calling her, the pilot. They go and find La'an. They help. So Pike and Spock. Oh, by the way, here's the thing. I should say this. Look at Spock's hip right there, and you'll notice something. He's got a phaser. They all have phasers. They never used their phasers. When Spock gets locked into sickbay, he starts trying to rewire stuff to try and open the door. And all I can think of is, you got a phaser on your hip, dude. Shoot through the door. They cut through things, you know. This is the Harper girl. So, it's like, it's weird. Why do they not use phasers? And yet, T'Ping, or the imagination T'Ping, does take Spock's phaser and stun him, and that's how he ends up on the bed. But Pike and number one find Spock, untie him, bring him out, but then bring him right back to sickbay, and this is where it starts getting gruesome. La'an sees Harper attack Uhura. Before that, actually, they were going to transport off the ship, but they can only do it one by one, and they transport Ortega, whatever the hell her name is, first, and it ends up La'an put it in that she was to beam herself into herself, so she was going to like collapse upon herself, but they put her into the buffer. But then she sees Harper attack Uhura, and it turns out Harper's not the one doing it. La'an is the one doing it. And then Kirk is with Sam on the bridge. They can't get off, and then the view screen starts breaking. So here's where it all gets violent. Pretty violent. So it starts, what you see Kirk doing there when he's screaming and we see the air. A hole smashes in the view screen and Sam gets sucked onto the hole, and then we get to watch Sam's insides get pulled out of his back, and we're seeing his intestines and stuff coming out before he gets completely sucked out into space. The window smashes and he gets sucked out, and then they decide, even though Kirk is now gone, he's closed off in, I think it was the observation lounge or the ready room or somewhere, but they decided to keep focusing on Sam being kind of dismembered out in space, surrounded by his blood and his intestines and stuff. It was like, why? Spock, obviously, it started getting gruesome when they start cutting his ears off, and then when number one and Pike bring him back into sickbay, Una cuts her stomach open, which we get to see. Then Pike decides, hey, here I get to be who I am and I can be the head chef, and starts where we get to watch in full gruesome glory him cutting his fingers off piece by piece. And it's just like, this isn't Star Trek, man. Yeah, you're trying to push the horror element, but what you're doing here is not Star Trek. This is just you trying to be gory and gruesome for the sake of being gory and gruesome, and it was ridiculous. And then eventually, oh yeah, Kirk does find La'an, and La'an stabs the shit out of him. And then he's crawling away, and then like blood is everywhere. And she tells him that he's gonna die like all Kirks do, alone in space. And then they foreshadow, because she says, and this is how your son is gonna die. Alone at the end of a blade in a desolate place in space. Which is exactly what does happen to David. Except he's not alone. He is with Sarek and Spock and the Klingons. But foreshadowing, that's what they were trying to do there. But they just get randomly beamed off the ship. And they get beamed onto, and we see onto the transporter pad Kirk lying there. And you think, was this in his head? No, she did actually stab him. She freaks out. All the crew are standing there staring at this like, oh, what just the hell happened here? So, obviously Kirk is fine. He wants to know about his brother. So, Spock doesn't want to go to sickbay. So, I'll pause this image actually on this, because this is the end of the episode and I want to talk about this. So, Spock gets Chapel to come to do new ears for him. And he doesn't want to be in sickbay. He says to her, I appreciate you coming to my quarters. And she goes, I get it. And explains when she was at war, she doesn't like going to the mess bay in here, because when she was at the war, the Klingon war, their mess hall ended up becoming a makeshift hospital. And so she understands that. And the big question was, out of all the people that the ship could have made Spock seeing things, why to ping? And he says because it brought him back to logic and all this shit. La'an has a conversation with Pike, and the conversation is about, hey, you kind of left out the part where in his report, which, why is she seeing his report to Starfleet? I don't know. But she's in his quarters and she says, hey, you kind of left out the part where I tried to murder James Kirk. And he explains like, well, you know, it was the ship affecting you. And he tells her this story of when he was a kid, his family convinced him that his uncle's barn was haunted. And to prove them wrong, he stayed in the barn at night. And right as he was about to leave, he heard, it was meant to be haunted by a woman with a sheaf or something. And by the time he was going to leave, he could have sworn he heard the metal being dragged across the ground and a woman saying, I know what your real name is, or some shit like that. And after the family searched top to bottom, they couldn't find anything and all this stuff, and that was meant to reassure La'an that Starfleet didn't know that she's mentally broken, which is why this image is important. And Kirk is getting Uhura to set up a transmission to contact Carol and David so he can speak with them. And she left them cookies, and he's like, what's with the cookies? And she's like, well, apparently anyone who rejects freshly made cookies is a sign of madness and all this type of crap. And that's where you think the episode's going to end, because we see him putting out the transmission, waiting for Carol to answer, and he kind of leans back in the chair and screen goes there. But that's not where it ends, because then La'an comes running into her quarters and up to her window to look out and see the Griffin here being towed. So they've brought out this towing ship and they're actually towing the ship back to Starfleet. Why? I don't know. These are the type of situations where ships like this and the stuff that happen on board, you normally destroy them or you leave them there because they're not worth saving. You just set up beacons warning people to stay the hell away from them. For some reason, they're towing this one back. And she's standing there watching this ship getting towed, and she's staring, and you can see she's braking. And then we zoom out of the window and we travel all the way over, roughly to the where you can see the light on the front of the saucer, like the big shine on the front of the saucer. Then you can see, if you move across, you see a white window. The window next to that, it's either the one next to that or the darker one over here that's almost in the middle of the window that we're looking out of. It zooms up and we see the ghost of Harper standing there, and she goes, why? Don't know. But that's where the episode ends. 2 episodes in, 2 gimmick episodes already. And we were told this is going to be more traditional Star Trek, and they learned our mistakes from season 3 with all the gimmicky episodes. And so far, we've had Jurassic Park, and now bloody The Conjuring in space. It was ridiculous, and it was the most generic, tropey horror crap. That's not scary at all. It's just like, yeah, they're going to turn the torch around and someone's going to be there. Or a light's going to blinker behind them and you're going to see something moving, and that's exactly what it did. So that is the Griffin Incident episode. 2 in, 2 terrible episodes. Can't wait for episode 3. But if you've seen it, what did you think of it? Let me know in the comments. And with that, I shall leave it there for this one. So do like, share, subscribe, hit that hype button, check out memberships if you're interested. All that good stuff. Cheers, and I'll catch you in the next one.